Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one. I'm Nick Cooling, and today I'm diving into the Wrong Turn franchise ranking. All 7 films ranked from worst to best. This was quite the franchise to go through, I'll tell you that. It had a few high points, but it was mostly it just wasn't for me. But we'll get into that. Hope you guys like and subscribe if you're interested, and let's just dive right into this, guys. So coming in the 7th place and last place is Wrong Turn 5 Bloodlines. And I'm not exactly sure why they even call it Bloodlines. It didn't really make that much sense. I think that would have worked more with number 6, but we'll get to that. So this one takes place on Halloween during a Mountain Man festival in a town. And that sounds like a great premise, but it's such a missed opportunity. For one thing, we don't even get to see much of the festival at all, and our characters are mostly in the same part of town the whole movie, and there's just no one there. It's a dead town. It's a ghost town. But they explain, oh no, everybody's gone to the festival. But that was just like a cheap way to film without having many extras or anything. And the town itself, it just looks very cheap to me. It looks like it was just made in the studio, and you can tell. I didn't look it up or anything, but to me it looked very dull looking, like the sheriff's station. It just wasn't believable to me. It just looked too fake. And yeah, the plot's just not very good. It's uninteresting. It's one of the main characters gets put in jail because they get caught with drugs in their vehicle after a car crash. And the whole movie, he's in jail with the leader, the new leader, Maynard, who is head over the inbreds now, the cannibals. And the whole movie is him in jail saying, they're going to get me out. You watch. You'll be sorry. And it's like an hour of that. It just... I kept looking at my watch, and at the time, this whole movie, trying to see if it was going to be over yet. This was the hardest one to get through, to be honest. And the reason for that is all the characters are forgettable or unlikable. They're just lame. It's dull. The effects are mostly bad or CGI. The couple times you do get a little bit of gore, like with the guts, it just doesn't even look good. And going back to our villains, our three, what is it, Sawtooth, Three Finger, and One Eye. Like, I just watched 6 movies pretty much with all these guys, and I can't even remember their names. Like, so not good villains to begin with. But in this movie, they're really bad. And since Maynard's their leader, and it makes no reason why he is, it's like he says, well, it's my house you guys are staying in. It's like, why didn't they just kill him? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it really makes them look weak, because they're listening to him all the time when they stood on their own the first movie. So anyway, this movie was just lame, it was boring, and it's one I'll probably never watch again. So now coming in the 6th place, we got Wrong Turn 6, Last Resort. And that's what I was saying, this one should have been called Bloodlines, because this is about like inheriting a hotel or like a resort in the woods around where these hillbillies live or whatever. So I just really think Bloodlines would have been a suiting name for this film. But we get Last Resort, and it's not great. It's not a big step up from 5, I'll tell you that much. Now, this movie probably has the worst characters of the series. I will admit that. They're all obnoxious. I don't like any of them. Our lead's the only one who's not obnoxious, but he's just so quiet, and he's broken. He's not a likable character. Him or his girlfriend, I don't find, in my opinion. And there are only 2 that I can really tolerate. The rest of them are all like just there to get killed, pretty much. And this movie barely has any slashing going on whatsoever. You get a decent little intro kill with the 2 bikers. Then the movie just pretty much plays out till the last act before we get more kills. We get like 1 or 2 in between, but they're nothing special. And it plays out more like a softcore porn than it does a slasher, to tell you the truth. It's very sleazy. It's definitely the most sleazy of all these films, even though they all have a little bit of that in them. This one takes it to the next level where it's like almost too much, where it's like they're crossing that line. And as for the plot in this movie, it was very different from the rest of the films. It was like the inbreds trying to get Danny to become one of them because he's a family member, and they want him to own it and be just like them, to almost fix their bloodline because they got so mutated from the inbreeding over the years, and he's in better shape. So I think they think it's gonna fix their family, I guess, that they have in the woods. It's a really weird premise, and he ends up sleeping with his sister, and all this weird shit happens. But I appreciate they at least tried. It was an ambitious story. It kept the things mysterious for a little while, but the execution was pretty bad. This is not a good film. I'll tell you that right now. And the villains, they probably had the worst makeup too, or mask, whatever they're wearing of the series. It's almost yellowish, their skin. Like, just didn't look good at all. I will mention I did like the little hunting scene we get in this film and how they're comparing the inbreds on killing humans with the two that are killing the deer, and they're making all these comparisons and it's showing both at the same time. I thought that was pretty cool. There is a few little clever things throughout this film, but it is definitely still a bad movie. Oh, and I just want to add, having the hillbillies wear those robes in that room just took away any menacing thoughts I had of them before, even though I had very little of them to begin with. So coming in at number 5, we got Wrong Turn 4, Bloody Beginnings. Now, this one had quite a bit of hype behind it. A lot of people were telling me this was one of the best sequels in the series, so I went into this with high expectations, which is probably a bad thing because I didn't find the movie that great. Yes, it had an awesome setting and having the snow and stuff. I'm always down for a winter horror movie. We don't have enough of them. But I don't think it's utilized the best in this film. This is the first prequel out of the three prequels, I guess, even though they don't really line up very well with the other three sequels. Either way, the first act in this film is pretty great. I love them in the asylum when they're younger and they end up killing all the doctors, getting out and causing mayhem, and you get that one cool kill with the doctor getting like the legs and arms torn. That was really awesome. I was digging the movie then. But then once we go into the future and we get the kids with the skidoos going to the asylum, the movie just fell flat. Like I said, it was nice to see a new location and the snow and that. Even though the snow didn't look that great when it was coming down on the screen, it felt like it was effects doing that most of the time, and I could tell. And it brings me to the question, why an asylum? Like, I don't know. It's just an odd choice to me for the Wrong Turn franchise, especially when you're keeping these characters and making a prequel. At least have it lead up to the first film, or I don't know. It just didn't work for me. The characters sucked again, like most of these films. They made terrible decisions, probably worse than most of these movies. And this is also where the franchise gets sleazy. It starts to get real sleazy around this film, and it just increases throughout the films. While I don't mind some TNA, it's always good to see. It can be overdone. They don't cross the line in this. It's kind of like on the line, but definitely in part 6 they cross that line. Some of the effects are pretty gory, but they're all mixed with CGI most of the time, so it's like, eh. And that ending with the skidoos and the fence, that was like a WTF ending. I'm like, what the hell did we just get? And then the other girl frozen. I'm just like, well, I guess the movie just doesn't care about the characters either, because I didn't. I was like, you might as well kill them, because I don't care if they survive or not. And that's just how I feel about this film. It's just not as good as what people say. I think they get a little hyped up on the snow part, but I don't even think that's done that well. And this movie just didn't really work for me, I guess. So coming in at number 4, so my 4 and my number 3 are pretty tight, like almost interchangeable. But for the sake of this list, I'm not going to make a tie. So coming in at number 4, we got Wrong Turn 2, Dead End. Now this is another film. Why called Dead End? Why is it called Dead End? And how many people make wrong turns in this movie? Like, or not this movie, this franchise, I should say. It doesn't happen as much as you think. They just slap that name on most of the time. But this one starts off with an impressive gory intro with the girl cut down the middle. This way, it was the American Idol chick. And that was pretty cool. I'm like, right on, cool intro. And most of these films have pretty cool intros, I'll say that. But then the movie kicks in with this stupid reality TV show plot, which I was not buying. I'm like, why? It's only the second movie and you're already making these stupid plots. Like, I just couldn't get behind this one, guys. It just seemed like a very odd direction to take the franchise this early on. The characters, I didn't care for any of them either. They, except for the military dude, Henry Rollins from Black Flag. He was pretty great, but in like a so bad it's good type of way. It was like goofy and funny when it's probably not supposed to be. And he even had like those Predator moments, like with like Arnold there when he's putting like the camo on his face or whatever at the end. Like I was like, oh my god, he's going commando at the end. But yeah, he made it entertaining. I'll say that. Where the rest of the characters, I was just like, dumb, dumb, dumb. And as for the inbred hillbillies, we just get Three Fingers and a side family that we never got to see in the first one. And that porch hillbilly there, he makes a return in this one. We find out he's related. It was just whatever. I'm not a big fan of any of these hillbillies, to be honest, or the inbreds. They were okay. Again, it was entertaining. Besides the peeping tom stuff and the brother and sister inbred stuff, it was a little weird and goofy at times, but whatever. I will say though that all the kills are actually pretty brutal and pretty well made for this franchise. Some of the best stuff. This movie can definitely get brutal, disgusting, creepy, all that, but it just takes weird tonal shifts, because then it'll go from creepy and disgusting to just weird and bizarre to funny and campy and like slapstick at times, and it's just like the tone is just all over the place in this film. Some people like that shit, so they'll eat it right up. So just to wrap this up, this movie is not the best, but it's really entertaining, highly entertaining, and it was a fun watch, I guess. I would give these movies mixed. This and the next one are mixed. All below this would be bad. Moving on to number 3. So at number 3 we got Wrong Turn 3, Left 4 Dead. Now this one, I really liked the premise of this one with the prison guards and the prisoners, I should say, the bus taking the other route, the hillbilly route, instead of the main drag, so that no one tries to stop the bus and hijack the bus or whatever. But they ended up getting the busted tire and stuck in the woods. That was a pretty cool premise. I was invested pretty much the whole time, curious on what's going to happen to these guys. They're all fighting. They're all criminals. They're all attached together. That made it really interesting, so you can't just run off because they're all together. And it really makes it interesting when some of them dies. They have to drag the body, or do you cut it? It just made for a really cool plot. I was just honestly curious on how things were going to play out and who was going to survive it. This is also the first film to have Three Finger on his own as like the main villain with his kid for a little bit. And I don't see how people... He's not big enough to be a star, like to be the main villain. I can't stand his giggling and shit, but he's pretty much in all these movies, so I can't just fault this movie for that. I fault all the movies for him. They're just not interesting enough. The kills in this are okay, but the problem is they're all covered in CGI, which almost ruins it for me. But we do get this one great one where the guy's behind the truck and the barbed wire. That didn't look the best, but the thought was awesome, and I would like to see that remade more practically. And the rest of the characters are all serviceable. They're more like caricatures or whatever the hell you call it, where they're almost like stereotypes, prisoners, but I don't know, I found they were more enjoyable than all the movies below this. As for the ending, I didn't like it. There's like 3 endings to this. It's like you think it's going to end, and then it kind of ends again, and then there's the final ending when I was like, they shouldn't have added in that last one where the guy goes for the money. Take that out. It just ruined everything. It made him, the main guy, look like a bad guy. It made his buddy the prisoner that he became buddies with, look like a bad guy or an asshole. And then there's another hillbilly at the end. It's like, is that Three Finger again? Like, anyway, just take out that ending and this is an okay film. And one last thing, the intro to this was where we knew the franchise was going to get sleazy, but it was pretty much only in the intro, and then they put that shit away. You do get a nice set of bowling fingers though. So coming in the second place, I know you guys are wondering, is it the original, is it the remake, or the reboot? It's the 2003 original, Wrong Turn. Yes, this one made my number 2 spot. Now this film, they kept it simple, which really worked. They didn't try to get too convoluted with a crazy plot about family and about all this crazy shit like the other ones tried to do. They just kept it simple. There's no reality TV show. It's just them going in the backwoods, West Virginia, and running into the wrong hillbillies. And just because it's a simple plot doesn't mean that you pick up everything right away. It keeps it mysterious. They slowly build the tension. I like that. It gets that part right. Like, there's scenes in this movie where it's genuinely unsettling watching these inbreds like cut up people and just being visceral. It's like, holy shit, this is the only film where they actually feel threatening and menacing. All the other sequels, I find that's taken away because it's just too goofy or sleazy, like to take it seriously. And yeah, they're not the best villains. One Eye, Sawtooth, and Three Fingers, but they make it work in this film. I'm genuinely scared for the characters' lives this film, and the characters are all serviceable. I really like the main guy, the doctor there. Chris is his name. The only character I could not stand in this movie was Carly. She was actually one of the most annoying in this whole franchise. I could not stand her, but I understand you need that one girl who's like, I don't want to walk anymore, just to slow them down all the time, but her, it was just nonstop. It was really getting to me. They do it a little bit in part 3 with the girl they find, the raft girl that they find, but this one I find was the worst. Carly is my least favorite character in the franchise. It's just too bad it's in one of the better movies, because she annoys me. But all the rest of the characters I enjoyed. This film is really like an homage to the 70s films, the Grindhouse films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff like that. And it doesn't rip them off necessarily like part 2 did. I forgot to mention that. In part 2 of Wrong Turn, there's literally the girl sitting at the table, strapped down, cooler though with barbed wire. But it's literally the dinner scene from TCM. It's like, that's a complete ripoff. While this one, it's an homage because they're not doing scene for scene. They're doing their own thing, but you can tell they were heavily influenced by those 70s films. The kills are all pretty great in this film too, brutal for the most part. And I love the barbed wire stuff. It always looks great. And the faces in that. And the girl getting her head chopped like from here with the axe. It's all great stuff. But it's not to say that this is a perfect film or anything. It's far from it. I would say it's good. It's like a 7 out of 10. But it still suffers from a few of the slasher tropes like dumb character decisions, jump scares for no reason, just people disappearing in a blink of an eye, just stuff like that you come to expect in these type of horror movies. But there definitely is some of that in here too. But finally, coming in at my number 1, you guys guessed it, Wrong Turn 2021, the reboot. Now I just did a review on this. If you guys want to go check that out up here somewhere, I'll place it somewhere. I kept it spoiler free because I know this is a new film, so I don't want to get too much into the plot details because a lot of people still haven't checked this out yet. But a lot of people are hating on this just because it's not like the other Wrong Turn movies. We literally got 6 films, and they're not the greatest, about these inbred cannibalistic hillbillies running around being all goofy and laughing and shit like, huh? And it's like, we needed to change it up, and this film does that. This one's more like a community of barbaric Vikings in the woods. Something like that. But it works because they have the plot, they have the interesting characters, and they have a kick-ass crew behind it. You can tell. So they tried something different and they succeeded. They still have little things like little Easter eggs from the other films just to show their respects. You still get the traps. You still get little things like that. A little bit of cannibalistic stuff in one scene. Just to show you that this is still the same franchise. This is a new direction. So that all the kills in this film and the effects are great. It doesn't necessarily play out like a slasher. It's more like a psychological thriller, but it works. The production value is amazing. Everything's shot nice. From the mountains and the layout to even the costumes of the bad guys with their skulls and their like ghillie suits. This looks great. It's original. This film really keeps you guessing throughout too. It's mysterious. I will say this, the first half hour or so I was skeptical watching it. It was like dragging a bit and it wasn't really that interesting. But then it just hits you at like 30 minutes, 35 minutes in, and it just, from there on, it just builds and builds and builds and doesn't stop. The tension, the atmosphere, everything's there right up till the final credits. And when that final credits hit and it says Wrong Turn, stay tuned because there's even more of the movie while the credits roll. And now I was like, oh my god. Because it kept ending and I'd be like, okay. And then something else would happen. I'm like, it's not over. And then it would end. I'm like, okay. And then something else would happen. And it's just great filmmaking. Besides it having a little bit of a weak first act, I would say, and a little bit of shaky cam at times, but not too much. It's very little. It's mostly in the first act as well. Yeah, it probably should have been named something else, just because it's pissing off so much of the internet, I guess. It's too bad because the film's getting rated 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10. You read the reviews on IMDb, and you read their excuse. They don't even write a review. They say, this ain't Wrong Turn. There's no inbred hillbillies. What the hell is this? Yeah, but that's not how you rate a movie. you still base it off the characters, the story, the how it was shot, everything. You have to take everything into account, how entertaining it was. But no, these people just have no mind. Before I end on this, like I said, I didn't want to get too much into the plot of this one, but it's pretty relevant in today's society too, how people treat each other without knowing them, and just like parties being separate, two groups of people, whether we're talking about political parties or religion or whatever. This film kind of dives in on a bit of that, so that was cool too. There's more there to dip into if you want to. It's not just a straight up horror movie that's simple, you know? You can dig into it a little bit and get more meanings, which is always great. But there you have it, guys. There was my Wrong Turn franchise ranking. I know I probably screwed this one up pretty bad. It's hard to remember 7 movies after watching them all and then trying to do these franchise rankings. I didn't do reviews for each. I only did a review for the Reboot. I figure I'm not going to do a review for each movie because it'll take me forever to get through franchises. I'll just do the really new movies. And movies like Friday the 13th and that, I will get on reviewing those because they are my favorite franchise. So stuff like that. Maybe the big 3, I'll do all reviews for that. But everything else is pretty much just going to be franchise rankings. Unless there's only 1 or 2 films in that franchise. Then I will do individual reviews. But that's all I got for you guys today. Make sure to drop down below a comment about this franchise. What do you think of it? Is there any movies you like or dislike about this? I'm sure there's some you dislike. Let me know that down below, and you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.